This is the diagram to show the standard timeline for the transition of human life. On this diagram, you are going to learn to understand your life, understand things that are happening in your life, understand how life is running on your timeline, and understand if whatever that is happening in your life, it's on purpose or on the diversions of purpose. In this class, we are going to first learn to understand all the features that are on this timeline so that you can know how to interpret correctly this timeline. Here we begin. On this diagram, we have two main platforms, and those are the platforms that controls your life. Those are the platforms that in whatever life you live, you are either on one of these two platforms. Number one, we have Purpose platform, which runs on the golden track all the way to the Kingdom Palace. On Purpose, on the very beginning here on top, on the purple track, we have the Purifier. The Purifier is the guard for human reasoning, to give you good reasons of the happenings of life and all life lessons and experiences. It guards the human reasoning. Every human being is born with this purifier for good life prosperity. At infants, the infant can reason to cry to ask for nothing, and when it's provided, turns the head to where the breast is felt, opens the mouth to suckle, and stops when fed, when satisfied. Good reasoning for human prosperity. In good use of it, it saves lives. In wrong use of this purifier, it leads to regrets in life. Purpose platform, it runs with the purifier and the time. The purifier is there to ensure that it purifies all the life lessons and experiences you receive from the universe to ensure that you live on purpose throughout your life. And the time runs with your life, so the three things, purifier, purpose, and time, runs concurrently with life all to the end. Everybody born of a woman is born on purpose, and everybody on earth is born on purpose and expected to live on purpose throughout life. Number two, we have Diversions of Purpose platform. The Diversions of Purpose platform is the platform that you live once you get out of purpose. And once your life is out of purpose, we are going to see things that happens to you throughout your life unless you live on purpose. Those are the main platforms that at a time a person lives on, and those are the things we are going to learn throughout this diagram after understanding for this class all the features that are on this timeline. In whatever happens to you, in whichever manner of life you live, at a time you are either on purpose platform or you are on the Diversions of Purpose platform. So you are either struggling throughout your life on purpose, or you are struggling on the Diversions of Purpose platform. Whether you have goals in life or you don't, you are rich or poor, you have plans or you do not have, your plans are working or they don't, you are a sinner or righteous, you are either standing on or living on purpose, or you are on Diversions of Purpose platform. On the Purpose platform, this is the way of the Spirit as the chief good advisor of self, which is body, soul, and spirit. This is the pathway to destiny. It's the golden royal road to the Kingdom Palace. This is the way of full potential. It runs on all the riches of mankind, and it has all the true riches, and it has all the satisfaction of man. It has all the serenity and the tranquility of man. So if you want to live on peace, you want to live satisfied with all freedom, every mankind is expected to live on purpose platform. On purpose, whatever seems to be lack is the ripple effect of the alignment of cause and effect on purpose and the consistency of the harmonious self. So there is no lack on purpose. It's the ripple effect for the alignment of cause and effect, where power of God's knowledge is. When the infinite intelligence is working with the harmonious self, it's a profound power and everything seems to be lack. But it's how life was planned on purpose, things to happen, and at every hurdle must be a success, and you live to testify the success in life. And then we have on the diversions of purpose platform, this is the destructive road of human life. It's the road of dissatisfaction, fear, doubt, lack, and chance. And that is the life that you experience on this platform. You will never be satisfied in this platform with anything, irrespective of the riches on yourself, irrespective of how big you can live. There is no satisfaction on the diversions of purpose platform. It's the way to the ruler of the kingdom of the air, and it leads you all the way to the dungeons of darkness. That is the end. If you end on the diversions of purpose, then you end on the dungeons of darkness. So depending on how you live in this life, you either end up on the purpose in the kingdom palace, or you end up on the diversions of purpose platform in the dungeons of darkness. Now that you understand the two platforms controlling your life, let's get into understanding all the features on this timeline so that you can know how to interpret this timeline to read it correctly to know where your life is. And here we begin. On the very beginning here, it's the purpose platform. This purpose platform is where every human being is born. Every human being born of a woman is born on purpose, for a purpose, for reasons sufficient enough from the Creator Himself assigning you things to do in this life, and you ought to live to do all things through Christ who giveth strength to all humankind. And so you ought to live on purpose as you were born on purpose. Before the foundations were laid, God had predestined all human beings to be on purpose, blameless and holy, to live on purpose, to end in the kingdom palace. The purifier, the work of the purifier is to purify life lessons and the experiences you receive on this life, so that you receive good lessons in life on purpose, to know things that are happening for reasons to give you strength, to give you good life, to give you a meaning of life. And the hurdles are there to make you know that life has challenges, and every challenge on purpose is there to give you strength, to teach you good life, and to do good things. So the purifier is there to give you good lessons out of wrong things. Because on purpose also you receive wrong things in life. You go through challenges in life. And the purifier is there to ensure that you know things are happening to you for a reason, to give you strength, to give you good meaning of life. We have time, and the time runs concurrently with purpose and the purifier. All of them simultaneously, all through the end, in a very straight line. So life must go through a very straight line, and there is no cutting corners in life. And so these things are the guards for human life on purpose. So life and time and the purifier are gifts given to all humankind in equal measure. And so to live is a gift. As long as you breathe, you are blessed with time. Whether you are young, old, infant, you are blessed with time in equal measure, irrespective of origin, irrespective of color, irrespective of place. we are all blessed with time in equal measure. Time and life are given in the same to all people. What happens on the individual timeline depends on how far the Spirit can guide you to live in purity in this life. And now the next thing we have on the very beginning here is the C, which means conception or the gestation period. Your life began at conception in your mother's womb. And then it takes 9 months to be given birth. So after 9 months approximately, the universe receives a visitor, the physical creation, created in the image of God, blameless and holy, by the grace of God, in the likeness of God Himself, the original creation from God, like God, to think and create and do things like God. And so after 9 months given birth, you have 2 years. After birth, this is now we are at birth, you have 2 years as a grace period to prepare your body and mind to be strong enough to start receiving life lessons. So at age 2 is the right time for a kid to start receiving physical education in this life. And next we have PTEE, which means physical training, education and experience, which we've seen it starts at age 2. And then we have the syllabus for the formal life. Let's increase this so that we can see. I've magnified it so that you can see what I'm talking. And then we have PTEE, which means physical training, education and experience, which we've seen it starts at age 2. And then we have syllabus for the formal life. The syllabus for the formal life is 5-10-5. To interpret that, it is the first 5 for the formal syllabus, it's from age 3 to age 7, which is 5 years. And the middle 10 is from age 8 to 17, which is 10 years. And the last 5 is from age 18 to age 22 years old. So the formal life, the first school of life, it takes 20 years. And that is from age 3 to age 22 years old. And in that school, you graduate to be somebody, to be the person you've become. These first 22 years of life of a human being, this is the time that had made you the person you've become. And this has made you the person you ought to become. Sometimes life forces things here and there and you become somebody else out of what you've learned here. But this is where life is made. And if you live as per how you've taken the life lessons here, you live holy, blameless, by the grace of God, you live on purpose throughout your life. And then we have PTD, which means pathway to destiny. And on purpose is just a pathway to destiny all through life. We have actualization, which means on purpose you live an actualized life. You live a life of optimum potential. You live a life of full satisfaction. It doesn't mean that you must have all the world for you to be happy. You can be happy at any time you wish to be happy. You can live a happy life if you decide to live happy. You live a satisfied life. A satisfied life gives you freedom and happiness that makes you to live an actualized life. And then we have the GE, which means good ending. So you can start on purpose, you end up on the diversions of purpose, and then you can come back again to live on purpose after seeing life is not taking you the way you feel okay in life. You come to purpose and you live on purpose. We have BE, which means bad ending. You can start good, proceed good in life, and you end up badly after some hurdles taking you out of purpose to live an intended life. We have LPC, which means life partially controls. Within the limits of purpose, life partially controls you. You have humanity in you. You recognize law. You recognize humanity. You recognize forgiveness, sympathy, and empathy. But it doesn't allow you to live on purpose. The purifier doesn't work with you to purify life lessons, to live by the laws of humanity. You know them, but you don't live by them. Living out of purpose but within limits of purpose means you know the laws of humanity, you know the laws of forgiveness, you understand life, but you don't live as per what you know. And then we have life completely controls. Here, life has controlled you completely. You cannot recall where life went wrong. You cannot recall how things ended up the way they are. You cannot recall how you reached, how you ended up where you are. Like the lost son, the prodigal son, who ended up in a place where he could not remember where he was, how he ended up there. But because everybody starts up holy and blameless and starts on purpose, and those files are deeply buried and they get out of the conscious, you can remember your life. And once he sat somewhere thinking and pondering how he ended up in where he was in life, he remembered God and he was saved at the cross. So you can end up inhumanly, but you come back to God and you start life again. And we have limits of purpose. On the limits of purpose, this is where the limits of purpose ends. Above this, outside the yellow card, this is the yellow card in life. Outside the yellow card, where you have humanity, you know all the laws of humanity, you know what harmonious living means, but you don't live by them. But out of the limits of purpose, this is where the tragedy is. This is where you can live beastly. This is where a person does things you wonder if it's a human or a beast. This is where things do happen, you cannot fathom how they happened. Here is where human beings do things, they outperform animals. They do crazy things that even the animal may have some mercy and may have some forgiveness. But they are very okay and they don't see anything wrong because they've gone so far and they cannot recall their life. They live beastly and they cannot recall where things went wrong. They cannot recognize people as people, and they do things in the beast way. They take the way of the beast more than a beast even. Even the beast can remember their young ones. They can remember the group they are in. But here human beings do things. They even turn against their families. They turn against the people they adore, they love. They turn against everybody. And others is just getting lost and they do things that they cannot remember their life. They cannot recognize life. They cannot live to recognize life and live within the parameters of life. Now here, after 9 months of conception, it's birth, and after birth you have two years for grace period for the body and the mind to prepare itself to receive the lessons of the universe. And now you go to childhood, to adulthood, and then life continues as God can allow. On these life lessons, where life lessons begins, at age 3 up to 7 years old, you receive life lessons from every experience and interaction, and it's known as the blank slate by David Hume, the Scottish philosopher, as a blank slate receiving a mark through every experience and interaction. And then you advance to from age 8 to 17 for 10 years. You start narrowing down. You start now experimenting things you've picked from life. You start testing the values and the beliefs you've picked from life if they can work for you. You start making your philosophy. You start making the things you know they are possible. You start making your standards in life. And for 10 years, you pick testing, experimenting things to see the things that can work for you in life. And you pick those ones that are appropriate for you. You make your philosophy, you make your values and beliefs, and you make your standards to live by in this life. And then we come lastly on the syllabus for the formal life, on the last 5 from age 18 to 22 years old. Here now you narrow down to values that you can live by. You pick those ones that have worked for you, and you start independently experimenting and trying things out to see how they can work, if they can make your life properly the way you want and the way you've decided to live. And now, at this point, you become respected or hated by the values you've picked from life. Now you continue throughout life receiving life lessons, and now after 22 years you are deemed to understand life, to understand choices and consequences. The UTCC, you understand choices and their consequences, and you are deemed to be understanding as a grown-up, as a person, to understand your life, the values you've chosen, the direction of life you've chosen, and you understand the consequences of things. And if the purifier works to the best to purify things and the experiences from life, the forces and the influence to make sure you remain on purpose, you continue on purpose, to live on purpose, to do the things you came to do as assigned, as predestined by the giver of life, God Himself. Sometimes life can force you out of purpose. Sometimes life can force you out of your way of the Spirit. You end up on the diversions of purpose because of some influence. But all in all, you have your brain, you have your mind intact to think through life properly and come back to purpose, where you live a satisfied life, a life of meaning. We have spirit on the course of purpose. The Spirit becomes the chief advisor, the chief counselor, the chief good advisor of self. That is body, soul, and the spirit. Spirit being the chief advisor, good advisor, to give you direction, to give you good direction, to remain on purpose, to give you good things. And it has the voices. It has the infinite intelligence. It's in touch with the infinite intelligence to give you lessons of life, to give you the intelligence on how to live in purity in this life. The Spirit always remains on purpose throughout your life, advising you on the good course of life. Its humility, humbleness, and kindness makes it to go backstage once you go overboard. So sometimes the body and the mind can go overboard, and the Spirit tends to keep quiet so that you can have your way, as the gratifications of the body and the mind can overrule you, and the influence and some forces can overrule you. The Spirit goes backstage once you go overboard with your mind and body, and you go round and around and around purpose until you come back and it takes over. Romans chapter 8 verse 6, God says, "The mind governed by the flesh is death." So the mind and the body, if they take their course of gratification, you have a difficult life. And it continues saying, "But the mind governed by the Spirit is life and peace." So at the point where mind and body listens to the Spirit and works with the Spirit, you live in purity. You live a complete life. You live a life of full satisfaction, satisfied with how life is taking you, and the lessons you are receiving from life, you appreciate, you know gratitude. And now, after ups and downs on purpose, or after struggling on the diversions of purpose, you end up in one of these two. There must be an end for every human being. In life, you can either end up in the kingdom palace, or you end up in the dungeons of darkness. This is the end. When you say, I have fought a good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith, and now I have my reward. And then you can either finish the race righteous in the kingdom palace, or unrighteous in the dungeons of darkness. In life, you either finish holy in the kingdom palace or unholy in the dungeons of darkness. So if you decide to live a life of purity where everybody ought to live, recognizing all laws of humanity, you end up in the kingdom palace. If you divert from your course of life, from the good course of life, you continue, you end up in the dungeons of darkness. But all human beings, as you were chosen before the foundations were laid, predestined for success, and counted sinless by the grace of God, you ought to end up as you were chosen to be in the kingdom palace, where God wants everybody to end up here. There are two things that God doesn't have in heaven. In heaven, God doesn't have a place for a sinner, and He doesn't have a place to keep the sins of anybody. So in heaven, God doesn't have a place to keep the wrongs of people. He cannot make the plan of salvation of all mankind before the foundations were laid, and He is after your life. And He wants you to get lost. God wants every human being to be saved, and that is His mission. The objective of God is for you to be saved. He's not after you to be lost. So He doesn't have a place to keep your wrongs. Once He made a plan to save all humankind, and He counted you sinless by the grace of Him who is the Most High, who is the giver of life. You were set free by the grace of God to be holy, to continue being holy, and to end up in all holiness in Him in heaven. So He's not planning that you get lost. He's planning you to be saved. The objective of God is for everybody to be saved. And now how can you get saved? What to do to get saved is to continue doing good until you confuse Satan to lose your files of wrongs. If you continue doing good, Satan will forget about you. You will be indomitable. You will be the cornerstone that Satan cannot push. Satan cannot push along. That you will be perfect until he can lose interest of winning you like he lost interest of winning Job. Run away from the devil and it will run away from you. So what to do is to do good. Continue doing good. Continue doing all things that you think are humanly possible. And your files of wrongs will get lost, will be misplaced by the keepers of wrongs, and once you get in the sight of God, you will be a free person as you were chosen to be free. God is love, and love doesn't keep the record of wrongs. So God doesn't keep the record of wrongs and of any wrong because He is love. And He loves everybody in equal measure. In heaven, He fought Satan and threw him down here. Because Satan was sin. And so in heaven, the place of sinners is not there. And the place to keep sin is not there. Why? God is love, and love doesn't keep the record of wrongs. So God's mission is really you to be saved, to do good, and be saved, and live like a human being in harmony with all human beings. God doesn't have a place for sinners, and God doesn't have a place to keep your wrongs. So God doesn't keep wrongs of people. God is love, and the characters of love is it doesn't keep the wrongs. And so God doesn't have a place to keep the wrongs. And everybody who loves God ought to end up in the kingdom palace. This is the place to be on purpose, a satisfied life, to end up in the life that God had designed you to end in. On the diversions of purpose, it's a life led with fear, doubt, and anxiety. Dissatisfied life, and nobody ought to live in this kind of life where you have everything and you are dissatisfied with everything, like the rich man who came to Jesus and asked, how can I get the eternal life? Externally he was full of life, internally he had no life. He was troubled, and he came to Jesus to look for good life. And the good life is just on purpose, just work on purpose with a satisfied life, and you will live purposefully. Having seen all these features on this timeline, in the next lesson we are going to see how life runs on these platforms. We shall check each characteristics of life on the purpose platform and life on the diversions of purpose platform. And from there, you will finally understand your life, understand the events that are happening in your life, understand every event, everything that is happening in your life, if it's on purpose or on the diversions of purpose, and rectify all things in your life to live in purity. And then you shall understand even the things you see around people doing crazy things. You can understand this person has gone beyond the limits of purpose, and they need some control, and they need some prayers. So we have some people who doesn't understand their life, who doesn't understand life, who doesn't understand humanity. All those people need prayers to remember where they were born, to remember the course of humanity, to come back where everybody ought to be. And now in the next lesson, we shall see how life runs on these two platforms, and you will search and find self, and you will understand all the activities happening in your life, and you will decide from there how your life shall go, how you shall continue living, and you will make your life the way you want to live.